The UCS ATST might be the best LEGO Star Wars Summer 2025 set, but has downsizing finally hit the Ultimate Collector Series. The ATST is set 75417 with 1,513 pieces for a retail price of $200. And without getting too deep into the weeds about how LEGO Star Wars has basically had a price floor for UCS sets in the last decade and a half, it's important to know that adjusting for inflation, this is the cheapest LEGO Star Wars UCS set they've released since 2010 in the Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter. It's also important to know that unlike every other LEGO Star Wars UCS set, this one is not starting out as a LEGO store exclusive. It's available at many retailers. So there's a chance that LEGO is going to be making 3 UCS sets a year, and that third UCS set every year will be the relatively smaller, relatively cheaper, but still pretty big UCS size set. That doesn't need to be a $240, $300 set, but can be $200, maybe down to $150. So I think while at first glance it may not feel like it, a set like this is kind of unprecedented in modern times for LEGO Star Wars, and I'm really interested to see how it shakes out in the future. But that's all kind of irrelevant to whether or not you should actually buy this set for $200. So on the box, it's just a plain black box art. It would have gone hard with some Endor box art like the version from 2006. I just missed that, but it does look kind of cool with the green hue behind it. Definitely the right color to have for Return of the Jedi, so at least that's there. The top of the box has a nice shot of the build, but it's really the side of the box that does it for me. It looks super creepy there. And then flipping around back, they're going to give you the measurements as well as some other shots of the build and the ATST on Endor. Getting into the box and pulling out the contents, we've got numbered bags 1 through 14 as well as the display plaque, which was just left loose in the box. We've also got a small sticker sheet as well as the instruction manual, inside of which, of course, you're going to find the typical UCS writings, and you can pause and read what you'd like. But my favorite page is this one where you've got the ATST. Looking at it from the bottom, it just looks so cool. They go on to show off the details and features, show off some concept art, but no mention of the minifig. Fortunately, I'm here to talk about it. It's, of course, an ATST driver, and it's the best ATST driver that we've ever had for LEGO Star Wars, but it's not as good as it should have been in this $200 set. I'll get to that, but we'll start with the highlights on him. Got a great helmet mold with the goggles printed on above his eyes there. Looks so cool like that. Got the chin strap and no second face, notably on this one. I thought that was an interesting omission. Certainly not something that I see as necessary, but typically they just throw it in there anyway, so I just find it odd that it's not there. You've got the torso and leg prints, which are fantastic as well. Lots of detail there. The back is well detailed, and then the best part about this figure has to be his arm printing. You got the Imperial logos as well as some wrinkles from the clothing printed on there. It's printed on both sides, and it looks so good with the arm printing. I never want to see another ATST pilot with that arm printing. It's such a nice upgrade. The other thing I don't want to see another ATST pilot without, and what this pilot should have had, is dual molded legs. ATST pilots have very distinct black boots that take up about half their leg. LEGO also just so happens to produce a leg piece that could be half black on the bottom and half gray on the top, and perfectly represent that, especially for a $200 UCS set where you're literally only getting this one minifig, so why not make him as good as he could be? Dual molded legs are commonly included in $5 CMFs, but we can't get them in $200 UCS sets for Star Wars. Like, it blows my mind every time. I think this one's fairly summed up as the best version of the ATST driver we've ever had, but it's not where it needs to be. Now, the build won't accommodate the minifig, so the display stand, of course, has a spot for him. I guess we need him. Throw him onto those two studs there, and he looks really nice next to the ATST display plaque. The plaque itself has plenty of information about the ATST. Always love the blue-colored versions of the builds that they put on there, and it still suffers from the dimple in the middle, so takes away a little bit from the look, but man, these printed plaques generally look very nice here. Overall, the display plaque and minifig stand combo here is a pretty standard design, and it's going to pair really nicely with that ATST build. I am giddy just looking at this thing. Finally, after nearly 20 years, a new UCS ATST build in front of me. And while it's got a lot of techniques and things that scream modern LEGO Star Wars, there's something about this build in particular that looks very classic to me. Maybe it's how simple and similar to the original version the face feels to me, but there's just something about it that feels classic while also being modern. Now, there's two things I don't like about this ATST, and I want to save them for the end because there's a lot of stuff I do like about this ATST, and I guess we'll start at the feet. We've got the front toe, which is the fence cutting blade, and this one actually looks really sharp, so theoretically it could actually do some fence cutting. Looks nice, solid connection to the rest of the foot using some Technic there. The rest of the foot is mostly smooth with a few studs showing through. I particularly like the use of this rounded piece of the back. I feel like it rounds off the back side of the foot nice and quickly, but yeah, foot design very nice, mostly light gray as well with a little dark gray mixed in. This foot in particular has a little bit of tan, and as mentioned in the instruction manual, the tan that you'll see throughout is supposed to represent some wear and tear through dirt or rust on the ATST. We'll put a pin in that one until the end though. The bottom of the ATST's feet are very interesting, and they actually make use of a piece that I've never seen before, certainly not on a LEGO Star Wars set, but you see that little black piece there. It's actually rubber. It's super small, so here it is next to a stud for comparison, but there's 4 of them on each foot, and these add the necessary grip for this ATST to feel like it's firmly planted on the ground, like it's not going to slide all over the place. It, I think, is a very integral piece to the feel of this ATST, especially when you compare it to the feel of the 2006 version, which doesn't have any rubber on the bottom, but usually LEGO would just use a tire piece or something, but they've definitely got something much simpler here, much smaller, something you don't need to do as much work to integrate maybe onto the bottom. Getting into the ankle and shin area on the ATST build, just this section is so beautiful to me. It's again another huge upgrade from 2006. It's a super strong part of the build, of course, to support all of the weight that's above it, and part of that does mean that you won't have any posability here, which I think is fine on these UCS models. A lot of people are disappointed by these UCS ATSTs not being posable, but I don't mind it at all personally. I like the pose that it comes in, and I think it works fine, but it can be seen as a downside certainly. But yeah, the upside is that this is super stable and not going to break. Should come as no surprise, the section of leg above that is also super clean, again save for the stray tan plate or two here or there, but man, the design is just so good and clean on this. Basically in 2006 it felt like there were a bunch of like things sticking out that shouldn't necessarily have been, but the pieces didn't really exist to make it as clean as this. Here's a quick look at the back of the legs, fairly detailed but nothing crazy going on, kind of ugly compared to the rest of the model honestly, just because it's the inside of the studs and everything else is just so beautifully tiled off. Next we've got the elbow joint, which is going to be integral to holding up the ATST, as it's kind of freestanding here, so it doesn't actually connect to the body of the build. It's just a very important joint on it, and it is super strong. Not going anywhere, not going to be a point of failure over time or anything. So basically, I think all of the ATST's weight hinges on this point. I'm pretty sure that's how it would work. The secret really is the reinforcement that you're going to find underneath with this Technic beam. Pretty seamlessly integrated there. Looks really nice. They even tile it off to make it as clean as possible. I don't think I can overstate how nice the amount of tiling on this model is. Like, it's just kind of everywhere. It's great. Same idea on top of the leg here, just super smooth looking, and that leads us up to the knee joint, which has a terrible sticker. I mean, look at the color compared to the actual color of the brick. The discoloration is startling on this one. The actual design is okay, it's whatever. The discoloration is just unacceptable. For $200, print the dang piece. Don't call it Ultimate Collector Series. Just take the word Ultimate off, because that doesn't really fit when you're doing stuff like this. The joint shield here looks great, and it's on a hinge, so you can angle it down or angle it up, depending on what you want it to be shielded from. On the box, they, I think, have it like this, and I really don't like the way it looks like that. I really prefer it like that. I think that's the best look and reminds me much more of the way 2006 looked. Oh! I knocked it over and the head fell off. Oh my goodness. I had something to mention with that later in the review. Holy crap, that was scary. It's now a good time to show the underside of the ATST. Let's just do that, all right? So they did a lot of work to make the bottom of this ATST look amazing. Like, flipping the studs around looks so good here. There's still some that's just empty blank space here, but generally they've added a lot of detail that we did not see on the previous version of the UCS ATST. I like this little kind of bubble on the bottom. You've got a cable wrapping from underneath to the front of the ATST, and there's also a little bit of color again to represent some dirt or rust on the bottom of the ATST. But the bottom of this thing truly does feel like UCS quality. Like, that looks great, and especially for the display, you're going to be seeing this a little bit, and so to have it look as nice as it does is super beneficial in my opinion. Getting this thing back on its feet, it's a great opportunity to show you what a first order ATST mod could look like with this new UCS ATST, huh? Anyway, here's a good look at the exhaust using these grill pieces for ventilation. With the head off as well, it gives you a great view of how the legs are going to be connected to the body and the way that they kind of angle out a little bit to give it a little bit more life on display. Now, the most important thing about the way this is connected to the body is the fact that there's 2 points of connection. The original UCS ATST only had one, which is more accurate, but leads to it not being as sturdy as this one is going to be. So I'm going to do something here, and I really think the only way you can appreciate what I'm about to do is if you owned or have held the 2006 version. My hand grabs the ATST and lifts. Look at that. It's in the air. And just notice how it's not flopping around all over the place. That's very important. Now, as I grab the old ATST and go to lift, oh, look at that. Look how flimsy and floppy it feels. And this is, I don't even want to do it. I'm going to break it. This is a scary feeling model to pick up. I cannot overstate how nice it is to be able to pick up this ATST and not feel like it's going to fall apart. And I say all of that with the head on the ground in the back because it fell off, but that's a whole different issue than what I'm talking about here, okay? I made sure to firmly reattach the head so it should stay on, but this is another part of the ATST that once again just looks beautiful. Starting with the eyes or the viewport, they're great shape and they are able to be closed very easily. So you can close it up like that if you want to protect your drivers inside. And then when you want to open them up to take a view of what's going on outside, you just lift them up like that. So you can get a lot of different little spots there too if you want to display it in a slightly different way like that or something. I prefer the fully open look. I think that's the best look for it, but there's definitely some range in there that you can choose from. I was kind of surprised they didn't use a sticker and only used an ingot to represent what is, I think, a more complex detail than the ingot represents for between the eyes, and especially considering the 2006 version used a sticker here. I just kind of assumed they would, and they didn't. In the chin area here, we've got the twin blaster cannons, which look amazing. They can also be moved down and up a little bit, so you get a decent range of motion to change how you want it displayed if you'd like. My favorite part is probably what looks like an Adam's apple on the bottom of the chin for the ATSE. That's just what it looks like to me. But yeah, the blasters are all kind of boxed in there, and they kind of operate on their own independent of the head, which is really dope to see. We've got the light blaster cannon here, and I feel like the word light is not the proper description because it is pretty scary looking. Now, it does have a little bit of shielding on the side, which can move with the hinge, and you can also spin this thing 360 degrees. You can either grab it on the side and spin it, or the entire panel piece spins with it if you would like. So it doesn't really matter how you want to do it, but again, just adjustable for your display. On the opposite side, we've got the concussion launcher, and this piece on the front is literally perfect. In the cross-section book that I'm using, it looks just like this Lego piece. It's actually kind of insane how close of a match it is, but this spins just like it did on the other side, 360 degrees, whether you want to grab it or just grab the side panel and spin it. I prefer just grabbing it. I think it's easier, but they both can move. Now, both side panels for the head angle down and in, matching the shape of the front panel and really minimizing the gaps. There's very little space between each of the panels on the head, which of course is what I expected, given 2006 already did that particular bit very well. The design on the back of the head is also excellent, including a couple of printed fan pieces. Nice to see a little bit of quality somewhere. Unfortunately, it's on the back where you're not really going to see the pieces when you have it on display, but printed pieces are always good no matter where they are. And then the top of the head is a really clean design, a pretty major upgrade from what we saw last in 2006. You can see the hatch in the middle there that is going to open and give us access to the interior. It's a hatch big enough for a minifig to fit through, but not quite big enough for us to really explore the inside of the ATST. So of course the entire top panel is going to be something you can pull away from the head, and it's going to give you access to the inside. The seats are not minifig scale. They're just a little bit bigger because of course this ATST is not minifig scale, but they're nice looking seats. They actually did something really intriguing here in that they printed the piece onto a 2x3 tile, because I guess if they had just put the piece on there, it would probably fall off because it would only be connected with one stud at the top. But it's a really interesting workaround to try to make the seat look as good as possible. Now, personally, I would have preferred them not use the brown part of the sticker because now the browns don't match on that sticker. It's also something you're never going to see on the interior, so it's whatever. But, you know, why print the brown that doesn't match when you could have just done a 1x2 size sticker to have in the middle, and then that would be a lot cleaner looking. The control panels are pretty cool, though. The 4 tiles you see there are all printed, and then you've got a sticker for another one on the 2x2 plate in the middle. It's just a really solid ATST interior, and even though it's not really going to get any use from me, it's just cool to know it's inside of there. Last thing while I have it open, though, you can see these rubber pieces on top are critical to holding the angle for the side panels on the ATST, much like they used rubber bands in 2006, but these rubber pieces are much stronger feeling and should wear much better over time. I mean, you probably won't notice them wear at all, unlike rubber bands. Rubber bands really lose a lot of strength over time. These should be fine over time. Now, I've shown you everything inside and out on this ATST, but I didn't really talk about the neck joint yet. There's something really intriguing here in a tire piece. When's the last time you saw a rubber tire on a Lego Star Wars set? It certainly doesn't happen often. Now, what I feel like this does is it dampens the movement of the head because it's a wobbly head. It's going to wobble a little. You can see it wobble, but it stops it from wobbling after like 1 or 2 wobbles just because it eats a lot of the energy. So I like the use of that rubber tire piece. It also just kind of looks interesting on the neck there instead of just a standard brick design. I feel like it adds a lot more texture than you might see otherwise. otherwise, but I'm fairly certain the purpose is to dampen the shake from the head because there's no way to stop it from happening. Hitting the head on this thing, it can feel a little bit like a bobblehead as it bounces back and forth, but that rubber tire stops it from continuing to do so. It just slows that movement down really quickly. We'll go ahead and pull it off. You may have seen earlier it was only attached with this singular Technic rod, and so that can make this kind of a weak feeling point on the build, but given the limitations on what you can do here, I think they've made it as strong as possible, so we'll stick that back in there. And I know I showed the head like falling off earlier, but it almost feels like it's meant to do that in a way. Like if the model is stressed so much, it just kind of releases, and that just stops it from getting damaged in a bunch of other ways perhaps. And so that way you can just take it. Your head fell off, that's all right. Everything else is still together. You throw the head and neck assembly back on, you kind of push it back down, and you're basically good to go. I don't know if that's the intention exactly, but that's just kind of what I've felt like as I've played around with it, especially with my experience with the 2006 model in mind. Just seeing some of these changes makes me feel like they were made in response to the way that this one felt. Now, to finish off the review, there's two things that I don't like about the UCS ATS-E, which will technically make three because I also don't like the color of the stickers because it's atrocious and who could possibly like that. But the first thing here is the dark tan that they've included in little spots here and there throughout the build. The idea behind it is really great in that it represents rust or dirt from Endor and just being in use, but at the same time, it doesn't really add to the model in my opinion. I think it actually takes away from it. The dark tan just, it doesn't do it for me. My editor actually mentioned to me that he thought they should have just included the gray pieces for it, and it would have only been like 25 extra pieces in the set, so it wouldn't have been too much for LEGO to include at a $200 price tag. I think that would have been very sensible, and it would at least give fans the option to go and make their model gray or tan for the price that they've already paid. So I do wish it had given you the extra gray pieces there. I don't think the tan splotches are the ideal look, even though the idea behind it isn't bad at all. I do appreciate the thought process. Now, the other thing I don't like about this model is its price. $200. Like, what are we doing? The UCS ATS-E in 2006 was my first ever UCS set. It was $80. When you adjust that for inflation, that's $130 in today's money. Do you see the height of these models? Do you notice that this one is bigger? It's just bigger in a lot of ways. The head is a little bit bigger. The legs are a little bit bigger. Just everything's a little bit bigger in 2006. And so to me, it makes no sense that this model would cost $130 today and this model costs $200 today. It should be like $160. I think that would be fair. $200? No fair. Maybe if you give all printed pieces, maybe if you give the extra pieces in gray, maybe if you give the Imperial AT-ST Pilot dual molded legs, we can talk about 200, right? We can understand how we could get a downsized model and it costs more if it was actually increasing quality in those material ways as well. Like the build quality is fantastic, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great things to love about this set, but $200 is probably just too much by about $40. So there you have it, the 2025 UCS AT-ST. What an incredible model from head to toe, other than the little splotches of tan. So let me know what you think about it down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the review, hit the like button, and you can check out more LEGO Star Wars Summer 2025 set reviews on the end screen now.